Well, welcome to Debut Live. My name's Suzanna Vaughan and I'm Head of Retirement Edinburgh.
Hi there, I'm Anna and I'm a Retirement Associate in Edinburgh.
And we're here today to talk to you about how to make a career out of retirement. Please don't forget to send in your questions. We will be saving those through the chat feature for answering in the second half of today's session. So Anna, first, what actually is an actuary?
Well, that's a very good question. Essentially, actuaries try to predict the financial future by making a reasonable set of assumptions. So we come up with financial solutions to things that can't be measured or counted. And actuaries can work in many different areas, for example, insurance, investment, pensions and reinsurance.
And as pensions actuaries, we work in the retirement sector. Anna, day to day, what is it we do?
So exactly, day to day for us, we're trying to work out how much money employers need to set aside now to cover all of their employees' pensions in the future. And to do this, we need to think about how long people are going to live for, and therefore how much money they're going to need. And we also need to consider how money will increase in value over time.
So why specifically do we think that you should consider a career in retirement? Well, first of all, it's relevant. I think everybody knows somebody that's got a pension. It's also hugely important to our economy. Currently, private sector pensions in the UK total something like 2.9 trillion of assets, so it really is fundamentally important. It's also become more and more topical in the press over the last sort of five to 10 years, because as an ageing population, it's becoming more and more costly and more challenging to provide these pensions.
So it's important to our economy, but it's also really important to people, as pensions are really about providing security for everyone in their later stages of their life to make sure that they've got enough money to live on.
And when I think about retirement, what is it that I particularly like about the job and what is it that's kept me working in the retirement sector? It's primarily two reasons. The first is no 2 days are ever the same. One day you can be out meeting clients, talking about their problems, discussing the challenges that they're facing with their business, and the next day you can be working with your own team solving some complex actuarial problem. The other thing that I really like about it is the people that we work with. We work with some really interesting companies, and the people that we have the luxury of being our clients are really sort of interesting and thoughtful people to work with.
My reasons are quite similar to Suzanne's. I really wanted to work for a firm like ourselves that's a consultancy firm, so we're working for our clients and all the work that we do is aiming to provide solutions for them that has a direct impact on people's lives.
So when I think about the different areas of retirement that we work in, there are a number of sort of key aspects that I want to draw out for you. There's two main different types of pension schemes that we work with. One is defined benefit, and that's where the pension promise that you make is secure, and it's the amount of money that you need to put in that's variable. The other type of pension that we work with is called defined contribution, and that's where the amount of money that you put in is fixed, but what you get at the end is variable. And ultimately, with both of those, we have our challenges, and we have to use actuarial assumptions in calculating the unknowns and the uncertainties. Now, as a firm, Willis Towers Watson is one of the leaders in defined contribution market. We have a vehicle which is known as a master trust, and this is really topical and cutting edge. It's called LifeSight, and really looking to sort of be the next vehicle and the next steps in the pensions industry. We also, when we're working in pensions, typically work with clients who are either trustee-based or company-based, so trustee or corporate, and a lot of our working on either side of that involve negotiation and trying to get your point across and getting the best deal for your client depending on which side they are. A final area within our retirement business is our risk solutions practice, and ultimately that part of our retirement business is all focused on the end life cycle of a pension scheme and looking to remove the pension risk from a company's balance sheet. As I touched on already, with a significant amount of trillions of billions of liabilities out there, that's a significant task in terms of removing that and releasing companies from those obligations. And Anna, I know as a graduate, with those multiple lines in retirement alone, you've been able to see and have exposure to a lot of those different sides of retirement through your time with us.
Yeah, that's right. So I work in the defined benefit team, but over the grad programme, you get to do 2 rotations, so one in your first year and one in your second year, and this is when you get to spend a week or 2 weeks with another team to learn a bit about what they do and how that's different to your work but also links in with the work that I do. And one of the new rotations that's recently been added is a 4-week rotation to our office in Lisbon to learn about what the team do out there. So there's also some good opportunities for travel.
And I guess when we think about the skills needed to become an actuary with an organisation like ours, you've been through the interview process. You've been with us for over 2.5 years now. What is it? What are the skills you think make a good actuarial student and make you good for the job with us?
So the whole idea about an actuary is being able to solve complex problems, but be able to break them down and communicate them in simple terms to someone that perhaps doesn't understand or need to understand all the technical details behind them. So to do this, you need to be a good problem solver to solve the problem. You need to be a good communicator and have good consulting skills to be able to share your results with your clients. You need to be organised so that you meet your client deadlines. And of course, you need to have good math skills so that you can carry out the calculations. So we're coming up to a very busy time of year in the work that we do. The financial year end is approaching and we're going to be involved in a lot of pension scheme accounting. So companies are required to pay their employees pensions. So this has to show as a liability on the company's accounts. So we need to calculate the liability of the pension schemes and then communicate this to our clients and their financial directors so that they can include this in their company accounts.
And I guess sort of thinking about the fact people are living longer, thinking about sort of the lower investment returns that we're seeing in the market, these pension obligations are becoming bigger and bigger and more material on company accounts. And I guess that's all in a backdrop of the recent over the last 6 months, 8 months, we've seen press headlines around BHS, Carillion, British Steel, significant pension schemes hitting the press and really becoming critically important to these businesses. Pensions isn't just an afterthought for these companies. They can make or break these companies. So quite often we can have quite challenging conversations with finance directors in that regard. So why work for an organisation like ours? Why work for Willis Towers Watson? Ultimately, the reason that I work here and the reason that I have stayed and found my career here through the years has been the fact that when you work for our organisation, you really are part of a team. Every client deliverable we deliver together. You're never left that one person that has to see that deadline over the line. There's been a number of occasions where the team is pulled together and we get pizzas in the office and the team's working hard to get the results out the door. The other thing I like is the fact that when we win a bit of new business, we win it together and we celebrate it together. There's not any sense of trying to win over an individual there. It's really that idea of a collective and that team spirit that sort of keeps me here. But Anna, as a coming at it more from a graduate, do you want to touch on the graduate programme and what you found from that?
Definitely. So I started as an intern. I did a 6-week internship, and at the end of my internship I got offered the graduate job. I then went back to university for another year before I started, and even though I'd done the internship, I didn't fully appreciate just how good our graduate programme is and the graduate training that was offered. So over your first 2 years, there's a variety of different graduate training courses, and these are a really good way of transitioning between university and working life, because you'll have, say, courses that last 2 or 3 days, and you're in a group with maybe another 10 graduates in your year, and you're in tutorial type sessions, and you might be one day doing pensions calculations and the next day it might be a presentation skills training course. So the company do invest a huge amount of time into developing your technical skills but also your consulting skills to make sure that you're really well-rounded in the job that we do. I like the fact that it's a permanent job, so although we talk about the grad programme as perhaps the training lasting for 2 years, but after that you can go on and do intermediate training. The job just continues. I really like the fact that no 2 days are ever the same. Sometimes you come into the office and you don't know what you're going to be doing that day, but I like that because it's variety, it keeps it interesting. Willis Towers Watson also have a really good study support package. You get study days to study for actuarial exams. There's support for buying the study materials and also for sitting the exams. and exam passes are rewarded with salary rewards, which is really nice to see come through.
Yeah. I mean, as an organisation, we really do focus on individuals' development. You've got mentors, study mentors, career mentors, workflow paths. There's so much resource out there, and we really do. We're investing in the future of our business. We're not just looking for people that have got technical strengths. We're looking for that broader consulting sort of ability. One of the things that I really love about our organisation is, given the size and scale that we've reached, not just throughout the UK. I mean, we have offices, in the majority of major cities across the UK, but actually globally, we've got a material presence. Even with that, we've somehow retained this sort of smaller, collaborative team spirit, and I think that contrast and that ability to have both is something that's very, very rare in the market. If I look at our values, and if anyone's applying to any companies, I would certainly recommend that you explore the company's values and mission statements on their website. But if you look at our values, things like teamwork, integrity, respect, excellent, and ultimately the client being at the absolute focus of everything we do. I mean, all our consultants live and breathe that. That really is us as an organisation. I hope you found that interesting. I believe, we've already got a number of questions sort of coming through, so we'll start to take some of your questions now, and please do continue to send them in. Anna, do you want to?
Okay, excellent. So one of our first questions is, what education background does the job require? So we look for students to be on track for getting a 2-1, and if that's not a numeric degree, we would look for you to have a B or an A in A-level maths or equivalent kind of background. So I'd say a financial numerical background certainly helps, but it's not necessarily always essential.
Mm-hmm. And actually, maybe that leads us quite nicely on to maybe a little bit about our backgrounds, just by way of sort of perhaps interest. So we both work in the Edinburgh office, but I guess we both came to this from slightly different paths. You came directly from university, didn't you? You joined us.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe we'll pause there. What was it that specifically sort of pulled you to us as an organisation, maybe rather than perhaps one of our competitors?
That's a good question. So I really liked the vibe I got off the company at the assessment day. I felt really put at ease. People just wanted you to be yourself and be relaxed, and that was a big thing for me, was the people. Also, I knew I wanted to work for a consultancy firm, which Willis Towers Watson was, and I felt like I was going to be doing a job that was really going to use my university degree. So I studied maths myself, and I liked that I was then going to go on and use some of the skills I picked up at university. Not everyone does come in with a maths degree. There is a variety of different degrees that come into the company, and that's also really good to get a good mix.
Yeah. Whereas my path was slightly different. After university, I knew I wanted to do actuarial work, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what type of actuarial work I wanted to do. So I joined an insurance company so that I would have the opportunity to move around different parts of an insurance company. Enjoyed that job, but very quickly discovered that it was the consulting side of things I wanted to join, and it was that working with clients, that close relationship of working with clients that I really wanted to sort of take my career to the next stage on, and moved across.
Excellent.
So how do you get into a career as an actuary? Good question. I guess first of all, knowing what an actuary is a huge step forward, because even sort of, I'm sure you find it as well, Anna, the amount of people that we speak to that still don't even know what an actuary does is still quite high. I got into primarily similar sort of background to Anna in terms of having done a mathematical degree, was looking to use that in a business context. The first thing that I did was I explored the Institute of Actuaries webpage. That's a great resource. If you haven't already been on that, I certainly would recommend you do that. All actuaries, all practicing actuaries, regardless of what company you work with, become members of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, and do the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries actuarial exams. So that's a great professional body resource for you to use if you want to find out more about the type of exams you would do if you were an actuary, regardless of where you worked. I don't know if you want to just really briefly maybe cover some of the exams, the sort of type of exams that there are.
So the first kind of set of exams you do as a new graduate are quite numerical based, involve lots of calculations, and then as you move on to the later ones, it's more looking at the application and the context of those calculations. So it's quite good. There's a good progression from coming from university and kind of similar exams to that to moving on to more how you would share your ideas with clients. Not all the exams are like written, some of them are on the computer, you can be solving problems, so there is also a good variety with the exams. They're kind of aimed at making sure that you're well-rounded as an actuary.
Yeah, and actually just looking at the questions that we've got there, there's a question from Cody saying, I do accounting and finance. Would you say my degree includes the knowledge that would help me in being an actuary? I mean, absolutely. Having sort of seen the type of stuff that you've studied there, that absolutely would be akin to a lot of those earlier exams that you would study.
Yeah. Excellent. So we've got a question about how's the work culture at WTW. So one of the things I really like is the team environment, and I felt when I started as an intern and then as a graduate, you're working on client work from day one, so you're involved in client teams, and there's a mixture of levels within that team, so you can be working with really senior people, you can be working with people mid-career, and there's no barriers to asking questions to any of those people. Everyone's very open. We've got an open plan office. There's no one with like set offices, so it makes everyone really approachable, and I think that's really nice that it's a really inclusive environment to be in, and everyone really genuinely cares. Sometimes if I've been quite busy and one of my colleagues will say to me, "Oh, can I help you, Anna? You look quite busy. Is there anything I can do to make your workload lighter?" So people do look out for each other. We are one team at the end of the day.
Yeah. And again, maybe following on from that, there's a question from Chloe around what sort of hours does an actuary typically work? I mean, it's a difficult question to answer because it will depend very much on the company you work for, the type of work you do, and probably where you are within sort of that cycle of where your clients are. So hopefully what you've picked up from Anna and I is that our work is very varied. So you find yourself going through busier times and quieter times. What I would say is in the earlier years, certainly the way that we structure ourselves as a firm is that we know how important it is to you as graduates and to Anna as a graduate to get the space mentally and also just that time to do your study, because alongside the job you are doing the actuarial exams, and that is a challenge. That is an important and hard task to do, which the company acknowledges, and so with that we do look to provide the support around that, and you know, a big part of your line manager's role is to have those check-ins and to make sure that, you know, that work-life balance, well, work-life study balance is sustainable and is achievable. And we've implemented a structure. We've got this hub structure where we've got people just a bit closer to the work that you're doing in the early years. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, so in the early years you're in what we call a hub, and each week you'll have a meeting with your hub and we discuss the various work that's going on. And it's a chance to move any work around. If someone's going to be particularly busy, we try and share it out so that everyone's got an even workload over the week, and it certainly seems to definitely help. And it's good just to have a chat and see where everyone's at and what everyone's up to each week. Yeah, it works good.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that's good with that structure is it makes sure that the type of work is getting shared around as well. So you don't just get opportunities because of the client, you know, you're on client X, so you always get that type of work. It makes sure that, again, at least in those early years, as you're finding your feet in terms of what type of specialism you want to fall into, you're getting that broad range of experience. So I don't know, there's a question from Sandeep about how long the graduate programme lasts. So I guess maybe the first most important thing is to emphasise that point you made earlier about the fact that it is a structured programme for 2 years, two-year programme, but that it doesn't then end. There's a job, the job continues, because as a business we've invested so much in our graduates up to that point. The last thing we want is to then lose them. So it's a permanent job, but the graduate programme itself is badged for those 2 years.
That's what I really liked about the graduate job, is you felt a sense of security when you came into it, that the company really wanted to invest in you because they hope that you're going to be there for a long time and really care about your career development. So although the training courses themselves kind of last for 2 years after that, I've now finished my 2-year graduate training courses, but I've gone on to do intermediate training courses. So it just kind of continues on from there, which is great.
And ultimately never stops. There's a range of training courses you continue to do, and there's consulting skills training, and there's always negotiation training, and a number of things that you can continue to learn, and ultimately, as a firm, developing our associates to be the best they can be is the best thing for us as a firm, because that is what makes our business, is the people.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, what other questions have we got? So how did you decide to do this job, Suzanne?
It is difficult, because I think things like this are fantastic because you get a bit of an insight, but you never really know what the job is until you start it, and I suspect that's probably true of most jobs. Even for me, so I moved here having already qualified as an actuary. 10 years ago I joined our firm. I wouldn't have been able to tell you exactly the job that I'm doing today, so heading up Edinburgh, the retirement business. I would have never sort of seen that in my future. For me, I think one of the most important things that you should be reflecting on is work for a firm that you can believe in and that you feel is similar to you, because if you work for that sort of firm, you will find your way into a role that exactly matches what you need. The amount of opportunities and the way that you can take your career is so varied that you just get yourself in that right firm, and the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah, I would agree. One of the things for me is I really enjoyed problem solving when I was at school and when I was at university, but I also really liked people. So I liked the idea that an actuary can use both skills together and combine the two interests that I had. So that was one of my main reasons for coming into the career.
Yeah. I noticed there we've got a question about how far into the graduate programme do you get to start working with clients? That's a really good question. Don't know if you want to talk about your experiences on that so far.
So the graduate programme is quite good for building you up slowly. So you start by having a lot of communication, say with, if you're working with a pension scheme, like the pension scheme administrators. So it's not as daunting that you've had no communication with the client and then you're thrown in at the deep end. So things kind of build up gradually over time, and then you might get the opportunity to join a client call with one of your senior colleagues. And that's the thing that the company's really embracing at the minute, is trying to get more juniors to kind of shadow seniors a bit, to see how they speak to their clients and kind of what they do at the meetings and the day-to-day stuff. So at the beginning, it takes a bit of time, but the more you progress, you start to get a bit more contact with third parties, and then eventually on to clients.
And I guess one of the important things to say is sort of as when our graduates join us, we make use of them straight away. It's not that our graduates are, as much as there's training, it's not that you sit for 6 months getting intensive training and it locked away in a basement somewhere. You join the client work, and you're doing real life client projects for the clients of our firms from day one.
Yeah, that is good. And so we've got a question about is it possible for WTW to give visa sponsorship? And this is dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So you're best to get in contact with the campus recruitment team, and you'll find their contact details on our website. I'd say that. We've also got a good question about how long does it usually take to become a qualified actuary?
That's exactly the one I was just reading as well. Yeah, no, that's a great question.
So I think on average it's said to be about 5 years, but the Willis Towers Watson average is slightly less than that. I don't know how long it took you.
I was 3 years.
Oh, so
I was lucky. But yeah, it can be quite varied, and to a slight extent it's sort of in your own control, because there's no requirement that you have to set a certain number of exams in any sitting. So within the actuarial sort of qualification. You can sit exams twice a year, and our students will tend to pick anything between sitting 1 at each of those sittings, or even maybe 3. I've seen people sit 3 or 4 of the earlier ones in one sitting. So there's a little bit of element of it's within your own control. Ultimately, the majority of people do fail 1 or 2, which is always quite tough, and it's difficult. It is a challenging career, and it's a challenging qualification to get, but worth it. Absolutely worth it in the long term.
Yeah. So I would say I've been here just over 2 years now, and I've probably sat, I think, about 9 of the exams. Oh, 10 actually. You lose track. I'm still waiting on results for some of them, so that's fine. Yeah, so it really just depends what speed you want to take it at. There's no like rush. You can take your time, or you can just try and do as many as you can.
And I have to admit, that's always one of my favourite days in the office. Is when the actual exam results come out. Because when you get to the point where one of the members of our team, one of our associates, is on that last exam, or maybe that last 2 exams, and you know the results are coming out on that Thursday night, and almost the entire team is sitting tentatively waiting for those results to come out at sort of 8 o'clock at night, and when you see one of your teams pass, it's always fantastic, because not just is it great for them, but it means that there's inevitably champagne in the office the following lunchtime, which is absolutely brilliant. But again, they're tough exams, so they deserve to be celebrated, and we celebrate them as a team, which is again very, very important.
Yeah. So we've got a good question from James, just leading on from that. James is asking, does the company provide support for the actuarial exams? And yes, they do. So for each exam you sit, you get given a certain bank of money, and you can choose how you spend that on study materials. So you can go online and choose if you want to spend it on, well, the notes. It's always a good start. And then you can get tutorials, or there's flashcards.
There's audio recordings and things as well, isn't there now?
Yeah.
There's loads of stuff. Yeah.
You can get audio recordings of all the material to listen to. So it's kind of your choice of what materials you would like, and then you get your exams paid for the first time you sit them, and a resit as well, I think. And then after you pass the exams, you'll get a reward through your salary, which is good. So yeah, there's good support from the company.
Yeah. And I don't know if you felt like this, but I always felt sort of picking a career as an actuary and sort of working with an organisation like this, you've got quite a defined progression, at least for that first sort of 3 to 5 years, because get through the exams, you have that progression laid out in front of you. You know what you're aiming for. You know that you achieve that goal, and you'll move on to the next session. So yeah,
it's good. Okay, we'll have one more question.
That's got to be the last one.
Yeah, go on. So, what is the best thing about being an actuary? Suzanne.
So for me, I genuinely enjoy the fact that what we do is difficult, but actually that's only half the problem. We're not the ones making the decision. The people making the decision are our clients. They are time poor, they don't have the time to be able to understand things the way we do, they don't have the actuarial background we do. So the best thing I think about our job is when we take that difficult scenario, that difficult problem, that complex problem, and communicate it to that decision maker, and they make the appropriate decision for their business, and they make the right decision, and you can actually see the financial results, and that's what I like most about our job.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It's really satisfying when you've been working on something for a while, a problem you've been trying to solve, and you see it all come together. It's a nice feeling to think that we've got there. And also another thing for me is I like the structured career path that Suzanne touched on, and also because you're going through it with other people that are similar ages to you, and you're sharing similar experiences in your first few years, so you don't feel like you're doing it alone. It really does come across that you're doing it as a team. So I do like the structured approach for the career. I'm excited about the rest of my career in the future.
Excellent. Well, I guess that just leaves us really to say thanks very much for joining us today. There'll be a blog posted in the next few days with some of the all of the unanswered questions that we didn't get a chance to get to. If you would like to find out more about the retirement programme, please do tap on the Opportunities tab on the Debut app. You can also use that to apply directly. It's been a pleasure joining you today, and I hope you found that interesting. So thanks very much for watching.